Hello, everyone. On behalf of Suzanne McConnell and myself, both of us coordinators for the Environment Network of the Diocese of Nova Scotia in Prince Edward Island, I'd like to thank you for viewing this video. And I would like to begin by explaining to you the history of the Environment Network for the Diocese, so that you might have a better understanding of who we are, what we do, how our ministry plays out, and the impact that that can have on you, your parish, and the broader world. To begin with, I moved to the Diocese of Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island in August of 2011. That was about 2 months after the synod had taken place that year. And during that synod, Bishop Sue had asked delegates and people what the most important issue facing Anglicans in the diocese was. The response at that time was the environment. And that was 9 years ago. It's something that we've been hearing every day for the last couple of years, but I think it was very impressive that people had identified that at that time. I have a long history of social justice. Bishop Sue was quite aware of that. And so in the spring of 2012, when she thought we better put this all into motion, she invited me into her office and asked me if I would consider chairing what she called an environmental task group. At the time, I thought, full-time parish ministry is really, time consuming. And to establish and head up something like that would add to the workload tremendously. It wasn't that I didn't want to, but then I thought to myself on the way home, I mulled it over and thought, I don't think we want a task group. That involves a lot of meetings. It involves driving somewhere, so using using up fossil fuels to get there. It involves identifying a finite group of people. Now, I do have a history, past in community development. And so I thought, before I even got to the exit, I don't think I'm going to do that. I think what I'm going to do is develop a network. That way, everybody can be involved. At the time, I thought Anglicans, but it's gone much farther than that as well. So I just went about my business and did it. And today, as a result of that, we have over 450 people who are connected to our network. And so what is the mandate? What do we do? Well, what are we called to do? It all is rooted in the fifth mark of mission and the baptismal vow: to strive to safeguard the integrity of creation and sustain and renew the life of the earth. In the past year or two, we've come to realize actually that it takes in all 5 marks of mission. It isn't a sideline. It's really encompassing of all we do as a church in so many ways. The Environment Network connects with, engages, and supports Anglicans and others, encouraging and supporting engagement through worship, prayer, preaching, teaching, study, building community, and leadership, connecting people in the church and beyond in common cause, loving our neighbor and all of creation. Our ministry is to act as a resource to regions, to parishes, to groups, and individual Anglicans within the diocese, building networks. It's to make connections and develop partnerships with the broader church, other faith groups, and secular groups, and increase awareness about environmental issues and advocacy. The Environment Network has grown to include over 450 people, mostly Anglican, mostly in Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island, as well as people, Anglicans and others from across Canada and beyond. What do we do? Well, a lot of this is rooted in communication. We have an email list, a Facebook group, newsletter. We have a website in progress. We have Zoom meetings, of course, now especially. We have face-to-face meetings when we're able to. And I do want to thank the Church of St. Andrew in Cole Harbour for agreeing to be our home base. We make presentations at churches. We are guest preachers at things like Earth Day, Rogation Sunday, what priests in Dartmouth call Mass on the Grass, and at regional council meetings. It involves writing articles for the Diocesan Times and the National Church, and now, as you see, using YouTube. It's all about relationship and connection. We have a relationship with parishes, visits on request. Thank you for any requests for visits. We're always more than happy to do that. Liturgies for special days of the year. We act as a resource for things like Rogation Sunday, the Feast of St. Francis, Season of Creation. And we also provide resources for other times like Lent. And so we developed a tool called Stations of Creation, which is like Stations of the Cross. But Donna Giles from the Church of St. Andrew, who is a brilliant photographer, and I developed 14 stations based on 14 of her photographs, based on Genesis 1 being broken down into 14 pieces, and her reflections, what she was seeing behind the camera when she was taking it, as well as a prayer. The reviews have been great, and it's been used not only within our diocese, but beyond, because you can get it either as a hard copy at the Resource Center, or you can get it online if you contact Suzanne or I. We also answer practical Green Church questions and make referrals, because we have a number of people who specialize in different areas of being a Green Church. We encourage local parishes to support local environmental projects and local environmental issues. And we support the efforts of local parishes exchanging ideas with each other. As well, we also support local issues. For example, the water protectors who are working on the Alton Gas project. Archbishop Ron has been fabulous in his support, but he's also been actively engaged, writing letters on clear cutting, mining, speaking about fracking very publicly. And fracking actually was an issue that helped us to connect with other groups. So how many years ago was it? 6 or 7, when the province had a fracking consultation. A number of us went to different sessions in different places. I went to the one in Windsor. I specifically wore my shirt and collar because I wanted the church to be identified as being there. When I got there, I got some strange looks. People asked me if I was lost. And I said, no, I'm here for the meeting. And they said, you mean the church cares about the environment? And I said, absolutely. And it gave me an opportunity to speak during that meeting from the mic as one of the lineup of people who was speaking about the issue. But one of the things I got to say was the church wants scientific proof that fracking is safe, breaking down the myth that there's a separation between science and faith. But it also helped me build relationships that night with the Ecology Action Center. And as a result of that, during a demonstration in Halifax during the Paris climate consultation a number of years ago, I was asked to be the last speaker during the demonstration in Victoria Park. Because, as they said, I was a priest, a Christian, so I would send a message of hope. And I was able to lead 600 people at that demonstration that day downtown in prayer. We were also asked recently during the last federal election that if we would help lead a day in Grand Parade that focused on election day, on meditation and prayer, so we could pray for a good outcome for the election. We tried to connect with other groups and other people, and we reach out to the broader community. One of the ways we did that recently was the Eco Justice Fair, and I'll thank St. Mark's Church in Halifax in the North End for hosting that event at the last minute because we had a hurricane hit the week before. But we have been able to connect with so many groups. And that day, 30 groups and 19 speakers, I think. Everything from watersheds and climate change to green burial. We also have cared enough about environmental activists and the stress and strain of caring about creation that we've held retreats. So we held, thanks to the diocese and its funding, a weekend retreat at the Tatamagouche Center, where we had like 26 people, I think it was, at no cost, be able to go away for the weekend and be able to connect with each other, build relationships, and ground themselves spiritually, which is extraordinarily important in this kind of movement, where there can be so much to spare. We also have held day retreats, and we offer those day retreats to any parish or group that wants to have one. Ours have mainly been on the sacredness of water, but we have access to the sacredness of soil, climate change, the sacredness of food. Yeah, we can tailor it to the parishes or the organization's desires. We have a relationship with the broader church as well. And we also have an interfaith and multi-faith, we built interfaith and multi-faith relationships. Now, nationally, our national church has an organization called Creation Matters. Ecumenically, I not only serve on that, but I serve on I represent them on the Kairos Eco Justice Circle. We are involved with the Anglican Communion Environmental Network, and we're involved with a multi-faith group through the Ecology Action Center. I was also honored to be asked to be part of a Thinkers Lodge in Pictou last fall. And finally, there is a new group called For the Love of Creation that's multi-faith, and I serve on a subcommittee of that. This is a national organization as well. Called Local Congregational Engagement Working Group. So you'll probably be hearing more about that. As well, we have things like our Thursday gatherings, where we're able to ground ourselves spiritually as well as talk about being action-oriented. And we have a book club so that we can better understand this situation with the climate crisis. We have engaged in, and we're doing this with the Thursday gatherings, gardening. So thanks to St. Andrews, we had a Zoom meeting recently about gardening. We've had Facebook conversations. We have talked about it during our Thursday evening gatherings on Zoom. And in the past, we actually supported and endorsed and highlighted community gardens throughout the diocese, in Blandford, in North Sydney, and elsewhere. This sounds like a lot, and it is. So how does this all get accomplished? An army of people like you are connected to the Environment Network. Everyone has a ministry. Some are totally immersed. Others are voyeurs who quietly support our efforts. Some have particular knowledge and skill sets that they offer from time to time, and so they can be called upon. One person has knowledge about energy reduction, another recycling, someone else about solar heat. Others have offered spiritual support, and some are drawn to the political, because we have sent briefs to the provincial government as well. Suzanne and I, you see, don't have to do it all. We can't. But we can help make things happen, and we can rely on others when we need help. One of those is when we worked with the finance committee of the diocese to develop a divestment of fossil fuels policy. So there's a lot of work to do, but there's a lot of hope in it too. And we can do this in amongst change. Life changes day by day in the midst of a pandemic. Just over a month ago, we were still gathering in church buildings for worship. Just over a month ago, we would apologize with a simple Canadian sorry as we bumped into each other in a store or on the street. Today, that seems like a very distant memory, doesn't it? Just a few weeks ago, not only was our world turned upside down by the pandemic, but in a 12-hour period, our world was turned inside out. A long time ago, which could be a month or so, as I speak today, before all the news we received revolved around the pandemic, updates on threats to the health and well-being of the earth and our future were reported daily. A year ago, from this time I speak, as Friday for the Future strikes took place, yes, there was climate despair, but we also felt hope as people around the world hit the streets demanding government action. A year ago this month, the Anglican Consultative Council, representing millions of Anglicans worldwide, passed a motion acknowledging the ecological crisis and made a commitment on our behalf to take action. Churches reduced their carbon footprint, went back to using real dishes, and installed recycling bins. Church buildings, though, are now closed. And if you think about it, that's further reducing our impact on the environment. Today, in the midst of the pandemic, no, we can't gather in church buildings or on the street. The voices that have been crying for environmental regulations have been dampened by overriding news reports about the virus. Social isolation has become the norm, and we moved back a giant step to disposables in efforts to prevent the spread of the virus. But hope persists. Less traffic means a reduction in carbon emissions. Trips to the mall and shopping, as Stompin' Tom so long ago sang, to save a lot of money spending money we don't got, are no longer recreational activities. We have determined which material goods are essential and reduced unnecessary purchases. Today, as much as we would never minimize the tragedy to those who became a victim to COVID-19 and their families, we hear stories of cleaner water, cleaner air, growing our own food in backyard gardens and balconies. We have figured out that we cannot be deterred when it comes to relationship, kindness, and caring for others. And isn't that what's most important? We are now living in an online world gathered by Zoom, huddled like the disciples, in this case, separated by the fear of contributing to the spread of the virus. But creation activists have been meeting perhaps more than ever, united in their commitment to caring for the planet. As Anglicans, we are committed to caring for God's creation through the fifth mark of mission and our baptismal vow, and now globally throughout the Anglican Consultative Council. We also, at our last synod, passed a motion that was similar to the one passed by the Anglican Consultative Council, and then 2 months later, the National Church at General Synod did the same, based on our motion. As Christians, might we take time to consider the experience of the disciples as they meet the resurrected Christ, who more than once commanded us to love one another, according to John 13. You must love one another just as I have loved you. If you love one another, everyone will know you are my disciples. As nasty and difficult as this virus is, here's the question. Do we really want life to return to the old normal? Life as the disciples knew it changed dramatically so long ago. As they established the church, they embraced a new normal, loving each other within their community and outside their community. That was the priority. We've been in lockdown for a while. We've been confronted with our dependency on things from other places. We have learned the value of buying local and what material things are important and what we can easily do without. We have learned to value nature, unfortunately, by not being able to touch it. We have learned how privileged some of us are and how vulnerable others are. For example, the homeless, people in developing countries, people who are food insecure. Have we learned that we should not return to the old normal, but have a second chance on creating a new normal? The Pope recently asked us to consider the possibility that the coronavirus pandemic was an opportunity for an ecological conversion and a reassessment of priorities and lifestyles. In the midst of fear and sadness and isolation, this could be a second chance. Perhaps normal, once this is over, should not be the same normal it had been. As Tommy Douglas once said, it is not too late to build a better world. We don't have to necessarily return to the same world and life as we knew it. Maybe once this virus is over and we are no longer huddled inside and hidden away like so many of the disciples were after the crucifixion, maybe we can ensure that the world will be a healthier, kinder place, and we will tread lighter on God's creation. Yes, these are unusual times. The virus has put the earth on pause. Humans are on a timeout. The planet has time to take a breath, to heal from the damage we've inflicted on it. A resurrection, so to speak. These are not normal times. Strange was the word our Archbishop used. But right now, in spite of our separation, the pandemic seems to draw us farther from the material and closer to each other in all of creation. So recently, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. As we move into an uncertain future, might we commit to live out the love that Jesus commanded by doing all we can to ensure that we have a healthy planet that can support life, human and non-human, by ensuring that the air and water that is now getting cleaner by the day remains clear after this is over. In a recent World Council of Churches newsletter, the Archbishop of Albania was quoted as saying, "Let us transmit from heart to heart the light of hope." Ethel Percy Andrus said, "The human contribution is the essential ingredient. It's only in giving of oneself that we truly live." When we reach out our hands to provide care for creation, to do our work, we are saying to others, this planet is important to us. We stand in solidarity with the efforts of others who value this earth. Now, holding your hands in front of you, observe their appearance and think of all that you do with your hands each day, which contributes to the care of God's creation. As Sarah Stratton, formerly of Kairos, Canada, coined the phrase watershed disciples, we have to consider what that means. Have we chosen to bless others with our hands in the work we do? What impact does that have on the earth? So now, I'd really like to bless your hands virtually. Can we do that? In recognition of the holiness of what you do every day. Creator God, bless these hands that they may continue to be a blessing to us all. May the work of our hands bring healing to all this planet and the people whose lives we touch. Amen.